Hello everybody, I'm Mango Thunderslice, and today we're testing out some new audio and video equipment. We're going to be talking about family. For those of you who have been watching our channel, of course you're probably aware that me, myself, and Mrs. Space Panther are about to have a beautiful baby child. We're at 38 weeks today, and so it's pretty much any day now, looking like a 4th of July baby. And just wanted to do a quick video today about the nature of family. The headline of the video is Are all families equal? And you know, that's not necessarily the main point above all else, but you know, it seemed like a fair enough title. But you know, because I've been watching, you know, a lot of videos on YouTube, of course. One of the things in America is just the whole race issue, right? White privilege and the tension between the different races and, you know, affirmative action and, you know, basically all the consequences and echoes. You know, we thought that the Obama presidency was going to make things better with race relations, but it actually made it worse than ever, right? And, you know, it's very clear listening to all the different sides, you know, without judgment, but just using discernment, right, as a component of honest observation, that the primary component of white privilege is basically the privilege that accrues from having two loving parents in the home, of basically families being, you know, planned ahead of time, right? And, you know, I am so excited to be a parent right now. There's nothing I'd rather do. I have absolutely zero intention of going to the club. You know, nothing precludes me from, you know, going and getting a beer at a brewery with a friend of mine after work. But, you know, I don't have any desire to go out and party all night. Like, that's, I got that out of me. And, you know, now the idea of teaching a new human being how to be a human being is the most exciting thing I could think of. And when I think of that, it leads me to think of the opposite, which is basically somebody who doesn't give a shit, somebody who didn't want to be a dad, somebody who didn't want to get, you know, this woman or girl pregnant, right? And so they either ditch out, or, you know, basically the union isn't strong, and so they end up going their separate ways, and the kid gets passed back and forth between the parents. And, you know, again, this isn't about judgment per se, but it's about honest observation, that it's not just traditional to say that a family is, you know, a mom and a dad and the kids, right? That's the right way, okay? It is not just an equal alternative to say a single mom or a single dad can do the same thing that two loving parents can. And I have, you know, good friends of mine that are, you know, that split up from their partners, and, you know, they love their kids and they're taking great care of them. And this is not a blanket, you know, categorization, but it's just, it's better. It's better, unless the parents are abusive, it's better in 100% of cases to have, you know, a mom and a dad in the home. And, you know, 70% or more of, you know, black children in America are born out of wedlock. Like, that's not a good thing. That's not progress, okay? You know, but, you know, to the progressive state religion, it is progress, because who becomes the surrogate when the father abdicates, right? The state, right? You know, during the Obama years, there was this little, I don't know, advertisement for state services. It was kind of a weird production, and it was like The Life of Julia, and it was like following this woman Julia throughout her life and showing all the wonderful state services that she receives, you know, at each stage of her development, from a young woman to a mom to an older woman. It was funny because there was, in this little marketing thing that the Obama administration put out, there was no father, right? There's just this woman through her life, and basically the state taking care of her, and they're advertising, you know, the wonderful state services. You know, and I'm all down for taking care of people, you know, when they can't take care of themselves, but I don't really think that's what welfare does in the end. I think it takes away the incentive for people to do well for themselves. I mean, I've known a lot of people who have gone on welfare, and I can't say that most of them were in dire straits, right? They had gotten laid off, they didn't want to immediately find a new job, and the option was there to go on the dole and take the cash. So, you know, they did. And, You know, it's interesting. For a long time, I considered myself a liberal, and I think a lot of people who have considered themselves to be liberal are now having this kind of reckoning to see cultural Marxism coming to the tipping point, or at least, you know, the Hillary Clinton presidency would have been the tipping point for sure. But now it's almost like it's the tide is rolling back, and there's a reaction happening to that, and a rediscovery of conservative principles, of the foundational elements and values of Western civilization. And what's exciting is it's not tied to, you know, the bullshit of the past, right? And that's the beauty of, you know, the whole Trump phenomenon, despite the warmongering shenanigans we've seen since he's taken office, right, is that this is not about the neocon, Bible-thumping, you know, or enforce our will on the world, right, go and bomb the brown people into submission, right? It's really America first isn't a racist thing. It's basically just about taking care of ourselves. And, you know, that's really, I guess that's what this video is about, is, you know, this channel has been a lot about anarchist politics and, you know, new scientific modalities and theories and whatnot. And I don't necessarily want those to go away, but I'd like to pivot the conversation a little bit more to, you know, sovereign parenting, of, you know, basically learning how to make ourselves sovereign and autonomous and resilient, and also learning how to impart that to the next generation. Because ultimately it does not matter at all if we convince the, you know, old fogies who are set in their ways and, you know, are you know, whether it's the red team or the blue team, right, those neurons are cast in stone, right? It's really useless to try and convince an old person. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? That's how it goes. But a young puppy can learn anything, right? And a young human even more so, right? But we have elements in our culture that are traumatizing, that are, I would argue, satanic, completely sadistic, and yet people fulfill them and execute them like it's nothing at all. And so I'm going to run through a few here just as a synopsis of what exactly sovereign parenting looks like, and, you know, what are some things that are common elements of child rearing in America that we are not going to play with at all. So number one, circumcision. Okay, this, if there were ever an instance of obscure, insane Jewish mysticism endemic in the culture today, that would be it. Okay, it makes makes it easier to clean your genitals when you're circumcised. I'm sorry, is that a problem for people? Does anybody actually have a problem with that? We live in Western civilization. We've got showers in every home. Like, is soap not a thing, right, in Western civilization? The idea of circumcision as a common practice in modern society is absurd. It is barbaric, and that I'm going to you know, appease Jehovah, right, to chop the end of my child's penis off. I mean, get the fuck out of here. That shit ain't happening. It's no chance, right? And you know, no judgment to those who want to go through that barbaric ritual, but it ain't happening to my child. Number two, vaccination. We've been meaning to make another vaccine video for a while. You know, we made a video back when 2016, when the movie Vaxxed came out, right, which was a fantastic movie. Of course, the pro-vaxxers won't even watch it, won't even listen, because they already know everything that science has to say, right? It's not currently accepted theory. It's not just a current understanding of things based on a select group of studies rather than the totality of them, right? They just know everything because they're the skeptics, right? Bullshit. Vaccination is not entirely bullshit as a modality, but health is based on the immune system, and people who push vaccines don't have a complete understanding of the immune system. They don't have even a rudimentary understanding of the lymph system, which is integral to the core of the immune system and the ability of the body to heal itself and to be resilient to disease. We can use the science of vaccination, introduce a pathogen once the immune system is strong, right? Not 5 days into their birth, not 1 month into their birth, maybe a few years down the line, right? Take out all the toxic chemicals, introduce just enough antibody stimulation to enable the immune system to respond and build that immunity, right? But that's not what we see. We see this blanket approval, blanket just sanction of the entire modality, and people saying all vaccines are safe at all times, right? But if that's true, why is there a vaccine court? There's literally a division of the federal government that is dedicated to paying out the victims of vaccine harm, right? So if vaccines are safe in all cases, why is there a division of the federal government dedicated to paying out the victims, right? That's a question. And the answer to that question is because it's actually illegal to sue vaccine manufacturers, right? And people want to talk about suing the gun companies because of a mass murder, right? They talk about suing, McDonald's because they burned themselves with some hot coffee, right? But you can't sue vaccine manufacturers when they tell you right to your face, this is safe and will not harm your child, and you're a crazy person if you doubt this modality, right? This is the height of medical tyranny, and we will not participate in it. We will evaluate on a case-by-case basis the cost and benefit of each of those vaccines, and if they don't measure up, if herd immunity as it exists in the population is enough to guarantee, but enough to reasonably guarantee the safety and health of our child, then that's going to be good enough. And again, it's not just about the vaccines. If you think that immunity comes down to vaccines and has nothing to do with diet, has nothing to do with what we put into our bodies, the water and the air and the food, you're delusional. And I don't care how much you are a cheerleader of science, that's bullshit. And we don't believe in that. So, it's going to be a case-by-case basis with vaccines. Number 3, Santa Claus. I've already made a video about this a while back. It's a satanic cult. It's bullshit. People think it's fun to lie to their children and then to break and shatter that lie, years down the road. Oh, you believed that? Oh, you stupid child. We were just messing with you. We lied to you because it was funny and we thought you liked it, right? And we distance ourselves from the trauma of that realization when we're kids, right? We grow up and then we think, oh yeah, oh Santa Claus, and we trivialize it. But I think it's very traumatic for kids, not like traumatic in the sense of freaking cutting off your foreskin or being beaten as a child, but still it gets us to distrust our parents, distrust society, distrust anything anyone's telling us, disbelieve in all even remotely metaphysical phenomenon because, it goes back to, well, I believed in that once and I got burned for it, right? And now I'm never going to believe in anything like that again. This isn't something most people talk about. It's not something I don't think most people think really anything of, but we are not going to inculcate a satanic religion in our child. We're not going to lie to them because it's fun. We're not going to have holidays of complete fantasy devoid of any real meaning, right? We're going to have Christmas. We're going to have holidays, but it's going to be real and it's going to be based in that reality, right? Number 4, public school, right? And, I went through public school. I went to a private school for 1 year. Aaron went to same private school, actually. We didn't know each other at that time. One of the many coincidences of our lives, but, and that 1 year in private school was the best year I ever spent in any school. I learned more in that 1 year of 8th grade than I did in 4 years of high school, of public school. And this was one of the better public schools in Reno, right? But it's bullshit. I mean, when you give the federal government, control over education, the amount of money spent per child, right, over the last century has been whoop, 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 and the competency has whoop, 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 down, 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 down. It is literally a perfect inverse correlation. The more money that the government spends on our kids, the less they know, right? They were teaching Latin in school 100 years ago. Now we're teaching remedial English in college, right? It's, again, no judgment. I understand if people aren't in the position to, allow their child to go through a better schooling modality, and they do whatever they can, within the means that they have to educate their child the best they can. But I'm going to make damn well sure that my child does not have to go to public school. There's Aaron used to be a Montessori teacher. The Montessori schooling method I am a huge fan of. Waldorf is another one by Rudolf Steiner. And I didn't really know too much about that, but there's actually a Waldorf school nearby us, and so we looked it up, just planning things out down the line. And it's absolutely stunning and amazing about building, training resilient, autonomous beings, not teaching them to beg authority figures whenever they need something. right? And I'm just a big fan of that. And, you know, letting kids unfold that natural curiosity, right? That is ingrained, right? You don't have to pack programs into an empty vessel, right? You have to, well, you don't have to do anything, but in my philosophy, in my opinion, nurturing that seed, letting it grow, letting it germinate, and letting it grow into a great, fiery, burning curiosity, right, that lasts through an entire life. That's what I did. And, you know, I feel like, ironically, I appreciate all my opportunities for schooling, but if I didn't have to waste all that time in public school, I could have been a genius. I mean, I already consider myself pretty smart, but I could have done some really cool things, and I'll still do some great things. But for me, it's not so much about going back in time and unlocking that potential for myself. It's about giving that spark to my child and allowing them to fulfill that genius and, you know, unfold it as they see fit, and just nurturing that like a gardener. Number 5, mass media, right? Again, this is a grand satanic mass cultural hallucination. And, you know, again, I'm not a freaking Jehovah's Witness. I'm not like, you know, saying no TV, no movies at any time, but it's about reasonable exposure, not unlimited exposure, right? Conditional exposure, right? Finish your homework, you know, do the productive things before you get to relax. You don't just get to laze away on the couch all day, right? Inculcating a sense of responsibility. You know, kind of going along with that, point 6, cell phones and Wi-Fi, right? I see kids, tiny kids with little cell phones, and the kids just give them the iPad and let them watch their show. And, you know, again, if it's conditional and it's reasoned and, you know, it's in measure, that's okay. But it's very, very destructive, I think, to use technology as a surrogate for genuine parenting, right? I don't want to take care of my child right now. Here, give him the iPad. I'm not a fan of that at all. And, you know, I guess also part of that, video games. You know, I played a lot of video games as a kid, and I think that certain types of video games can be very nourishing to the intellect, right? I played a lot of strategy games, right? I feel like my sense of strategic intelligence is something that benefits me every day, especially in the world of business, right? But not even in business, just in life. To think strategically, to have common sense, right? And I think that some video games can help with that. But I think that there's a very, very easy way for the tipping point to arrive, especially with games that are just violent and first-person shooters. And, you know, I used to make fun of the idea as a kid that video games were desensitizing our children, right? Hillary Clinton, I remember, was back in like 2003 talking about video games and how they were ruining the children, right? And I was laughing at her, and I even wrote a letter to the editor at the paper in Reno saying, don't you think that the actual wars that you're calling for and the actual people being killed out in these foreign countries, don't you think that's a little bit more traumatizing than the video games that the kids are playing? And I still agree with that point, but I also agree that desensitizing children to the destruction of the human frame, destruction of life, is a very pernicious element. And I see it very much in people, my own peers, right? People don't have a respect for life. They have a disrespect for life. They think it's funny when people get blown up. They think violence is just like this light entertainment, but it's really not. And yet it's saturated our culture to the point where we think it's normal. And, you know, I'm not going to participate in that. We are not going to participate in that. We're going to garden. We're going to have, you know, family activities, right? We're going to go on hikes together. And I'm going to teach this kid everything that I know. And when the limit of my knowledge arrives, then I will find the absolute best teachers to teach what I cannot. And, you know, again, I feel like if it's not about believing in an external metaphysical God who, you know, it's not about anything that's external or false, right? The true religion is the religion of life, and the truest manifestation of that practice and that action is in the raising of the next generation. And to see people be callous towards kids and I hate kids, and these degenerate freaking comedians, right, who have no respect for life whatsoever. I mean, comedians back in the day used to actually be smart and witty and funny. Now it's just a bunch of degenerates. Freaking Amy Schumer and the daughter of Chuck Schumer, right? You know, another lovely paragon of virtue in the Congress, Chuck Schumer. Good God. The only thing that guy is good for, I guess, is at this point arguing in favor of legalization of cannabis. I'll give that to him. But even John Boehner is in favor of that too, on an advisory council for cannabis. And at least with that point too, you know, basically, I'm not going to hide cannabis from my kid. I'm not going to get them high when they're 2 years old, but I'm going to teach them basically, you know, that it's just another plant, and it's a creation of God, and it has, it affects people like the other plants affect people, and that it's how our family provides for itself, because people, a lot of people are in pain, and this plant helps them. And, you know, even for people who aren't in pain per se, you know, being able to relax and not poison themselves, you know, is medicinal in and of itself in a profoundly sick culture. And so I guess that's my video today, just an update. You know, basically we're really close to the due date, and you know, it's just all I can think about. And it's a beautiful thing when any human being is born, right? This bullshit about overpopulation and identity politics and hating on white people, hating on black people, hating on Hispanics, whatever. I don't buy any of that bullshit, right? Life is a miracle. And listening to a guy, my boy Jesse Lee Peterson. First it was Jordan B. Peterson, now it's Jesse Lee Peterson. Jesse Lee Peterson, if you don't know who he is a black preacher in America, and he is a staunch conservative. He grew up in the 40s, picked cotton on a plantation in Alabama, and will deny to the hilt to anyone he talks to, white or black, that racism even exists or ever has. And I don't necessarily agree with that point precisely, but his attitude is perfect. And it's just that you have to respect your own parents for creating you, and me in the process of creating another human, that's really hitting home. And I realized that, you know, one thing that Jesse Lee Peterson, in between making fun of liberals and you know, he also takes down the alt-right. He had the balls and the composure to have a conversation with Richard Spencer of the alt-right and all these alt-right guys. He doesn't get triggered. And he says, I'm not an emotional person, right? Emotional people, especially emotional men, right? They are angry, right? And their anger stems from their own anger towards their parents, anger towards their parents for what their parents did to them. And it's like, you know, our parents do things for us and they do things to us, right? But ultimately, a man who is emotional is a man who is weak. And a man who is weak because, and emotional, because he hasn't forgiven his parents, specifically his mom, for what she has done to him. And, you know, again, I respect what my mom has done for me, right? There's arguments we've had, and, you know, same with my dad, but I forgive them, right? And that's not about whether or not they deserve it. Again, not to say that they don't, but it's about me. It's about me developing myself as a human being and becoming more mature and being a strong person for my child, and not passing on weakness, right? Like the sword of Gryffindor, it only takes in that which makes it stronger, right? And, you know, Jesse Lee Peterson's the man. He's just great, but, you know, that's what it is. I don't want to be an angry person. I want this love that I have towards Space Panther and my child, and towards, you know, towards just life in the universe in general. I want that to be the fire that burns, right? You know, I don't want to feed, right, the carnivorous wolf. I want to feed the benevolent wolf, to go with that parable or whatever. But yeah, basically life is a miracle. You know, it's I can't believe that it's almost going to happen. And the idea that we created this being, and, you know, we created the body of this being though, but its soul is its own, right? Just like me, I am my own person, but to think I was created, my body was created, you know, that I was once a little zygote and I grew inside my mom's womb, that is such a trip, right? And here we are. So that's my video today. You know, are all families equal? No, they're not, but, you know, we are all part of the equal miracle of life, right? And we do ourselves a disservice when we don't acknowledge that there is a right and a wrong way to do things in life, that there is a good and an evil. And when we give kids what they need, and we care for them and love them, and we actually create new responsible humans, that is unequivocally good. And when we disrespect children and we abuse them and we neglect them and we traumatize them through all the aforementioned means, I will not propagate a satanic cult. I will propagate the true religion, which is the religion of life, right? The cultivation of the life force. And that, it overlaps entirely with Christianity. I wouldn't necessarily, it overlaps equally with all religions of the world, but, that is what the parable of the Christ is that the divine spirit manifests in the human frame, right? And I resolve to do well by my kid, and I just thank you guys for watching our channel, for finding these things interesting, however many or however few. But if you guys have any thoughts, I definitely appreciate hearing them in the comments below if you have kids and you're raising sovereign kids. And basically, wholeness and balanced vibrations. Much love to you guys, and I will see you next time. Cheers.
Ah.